In this video, we're going to be talking about plant tropism. So let's compare plants and animals. One main difference you can find between these two is that animals move, but plants don't. However, we have to recheck this hypothesis. So actually plants do move, and they move their body parts based on external factors like such as light, gravity, temperature, touch, etc. And the way they respond to this is they move either towards or away from those external factors. Another word for external factors that we'll be using a lot in this video is stimulus. So let's look at tropism. Tropism is basically a unidirectional movement that goes either towards or it goes away from a stimulus, like I said, an external factor. So there are different ways a plant can react towards different stimuli. The most common are found in these five over here. Let's start with phototropism. So when we analyze the word, we can already understand that photo, meaning light, must have something to do with light. And tropism means to react or to move. And tropism, and so that means that the plant must be reacting or moving due to light. And when we look at these two pictures over here, we can see how the plant is reacting in different ways based on the position of the light bulb, or in real life, it would be the sun. So basically, wherever the source of light is, or in this situation, light, the stimulus, whatever position that source of light is, that's where the plant direction is moving from. And as we can see over here, since it's over here at the top and it's straight, then the plant will grow straight. However, here it's at the side, and because of that, the plant is bending the angle so that it's able to get the most out of that sunlight or that stimulus. Next, let's move to geotropism. So we see this plant over here. Well, originally it was horizontal. However, as time went by, what happens is that gravity pulls the plant down. However, for the plant functions to work, the plant needs to be at an upright position. So the stem bends and it turns into this upright position. And the roots, they also end up bending but turn in towards gravity, but this turns away from gravity. We can see how this is a positive geotropism and a negative geotropism. You might be wondering what positive and negative means in this statement, and we'll move on from there after we finish the remaining examples. So next is Thigmotropism. Thigmo means touch, and tropism, as we learned, means movement. So basically, this must have some kind of response towards a touch. So let's look at this plant over here. So these are called creep leaves, and basically, as their name suggests, they creep up on different objects and stick to those objects. In this photo, we can see that the creep plant is slowly creeping up on this stick, or the bamboo stick, and is attaching to it and is curling up around and around and around. When it responds to this stimulus, which in this situation is touch, when it responds, it is curling around to be able to get support. Hence, we see Thigmotropism over here. Next, let's move to Hydrotropism. We see that over here, there's moist soil, and when there's moist soil, that means that it must be like very wet or something like that. And because it's very wet, the roots don't seem to have any problem. The plant doesn't seem to have any problem. It's in a pretty okay position. But now let's compare it to dry soil, and we have some source of water over here. Since there's water over here, that must mean that the roots will be way more attracted towards the water, and the roots are actually able to sense that. So when the roots get more attracted towards the water, they start to turn towards it to be able to gain those nutrients. So the stimulus here is water, and we learned that hydrotropism, hydro means water. And lastly, we have chemotropism. Chemo means chemical, so it must have something to do with a chemical movement. In chemotropism, there are two ways that we can see these examples. So if there's like a harmful chemical, then the roots will move away from that harmful chemical. But if it's a good chemical that the plant needs to survive, for example, let's take nitrogen, where like a plant needs nitrogen to be able to survive, then it would move towards that nitrogen source. And another place is in the reproductive system. So basically, we have the pollen grain over here, and whenever that pollen grain is getting pollinated into the reproductive part over here by an insect, what happens is a small tube structure will end up forming over here, and that allows the sperms located in the pollen to be able to reach the ovules, and the ovules create the seeds, the ovary turns into the fruit, and then we get a fruit containing seeds inside of it. Take a tomato, for example. In this case, a chemical message was sent and a tube was created. And over here, we're comparing it with different types of chemical elements. And based on if they're harmful or if they're helpful, the roots will either go towards or away from it. So these are different types of plant tropism. However, we're not exactly done. There's a positive tropism and a negative tropism. So basically, the positive tropism is where the plant moves towards the stimulus, but negative is where it moves away from it. In a plant, we could typically see both positive and negative tropisms happening at the exact same time, and we can see it over here. The top part of the plant over here is growing completely straight, so it's moving towards the source of light, but the roots are going at the other direction. So this is positive and this is negative, and same thing can be said over here. Now for this one, we're looking at geotropism and we're comparing it with gravity, because gravity is the one pulling it down. The roots are moving in response to gravity and are being pulled down, so that's a positive, moving towards gravity, but this is negative because it's moving away from gravity. And over here, we have a positive tropism happening over here because they're curling around, and then over here we have hydrotropism, where the roots are moving towards the water but the upper part of the plant is moving away from it. We can see a small tilt over here compared to over here. And then lastly, for chemotropism, we can see the roots are positive tropism, and over here we have the positive tropism, which when the sperms they move or the chemical message is being sent, that's the positive tropism. And lastly, fun fact, we're going to move to nastic movements. So nastic movement is not the exact same thing as a plant tropism. For example, let's take the Venus flytrap. So basically, it's a carnivorous plant. It traps flies so it's able to use it for food, and it's carnivorous so it eats it. Let's say this is the mouth, okay? And there's a fly over here. So what happens is that it immediately closes its mouth so it's able to digest the fly. However, this is not considered a plant tropism because it's not moving away or towards the stimulus. The stimulus here would obviously be the fly, and although there's movement happening, there's no certain direction on if it's going towards or away from it because it's digesting it. So because we're not able to determine the direction if it goes towards or away from the stimulus, it's not considered a type of tropism, but rather a nastic movement.